favor. Okay, we got it. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the author, Andrew Snorton, and I'm so excited to be here today. This is our series all about the authors that I typically co-host with celebrity source Ty Resta Ty. Ty is taking care of, celebrity business with her working with all her moving parts. So she may be able to join us, but if not, give Ty a quick shout and wishing her success with all she's working on with her books, all that type of stuff, all that famous people stuff. But today, as we do every second and fourth Sunday at about this time, we usually make sure to invite, two guest authors who are able to talk a little bit in depth and detail about their books, some of their motivations behind it, some of the takeaways that they want readers to have and things along those lines. So I'll talk about my stuff a little bit later, but as a quick reminder, to stay connected, make sure you're adding me on Facebook at author Andrew Snorton, where this is streaming live right now. And for those of you that can get into Zoom, you can join us there. So yeah, technology, y'all, is hours of entertainment. And the first author that we're going to present saw firsthand a couple weeks ago what happened. But this is a wonderful person who was a referral from another author based out of Jackson, Mississippi, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Exactly.
SIP. Y'all, didn't know I knew the lingo, the SIP. And I know about Johnny T's Bistro and Blues. You already know what I'm talking about. Good spot, good spot. And
Yeah.
and all that type of thing. So LaVonne Yarbor is going to be the first author that we hear from, doing some powerful work with her book and beyond. So Yvonne, how are you doing this afternoon?
I am great.
Great. So we know you're from the Jackson, Mississippi area. Could you give our viewers a little bit of a background about some of the other moving parts that you have that make you who you are?
Oh, awesome. First of all, I would like to say thank you for allowing me to come on your show. And Andrew, author Andrew and author Ty. I am just elated to be on here and to share about the things that God has led me to do to help other people based on some of the things that I have gone through.
Okay, great. So walk us through a little bit. What would you say was that nudge or push for you to take the work that you're doing through the lens of what you do professionally, your community advocacy, your stewardship, obviously by mentioning faith? What would you say was that nudge that was like, I need to take this to this particular step?
That nudge was several years ago. I was involved with a survivor class. And that survivor class had like maybe about 15 women that were within it. And the women that was in that class, of course, we was all in there for some of the same reason, some of the struggles and things that we had came out of. And the instructor asked me to share my life story. And so when I did that, I was like, you for sure? You for sure you want me? Because at that time I was like really shy and didn't really want to talk to anybody about myself. And then on the other hand, I was thinking that I was the only one that had gone through what I had gone through. Sure, I didn't want to share this with the women that would sit around the table. But however, I did. And I shared just a little pieces of my life story. And out of that, sharing with them, so many of them began to open up and share things that they had gone through that they had never shared with anybody else. And so, when they began to share their pain, and I could relate to the pain because of the things that I had gone through, I was like, wow, it's like, yeah, I can see why I should write a book, because I can see where my story is helping other people, to share things that they might have never shared, with no one else, and may have never talked to anyone else about it.
And I'm glad you're sharing that, because we forget how powerful our individual stories really are. And we sometimes, like you said, you're like, why me? But then when you really think about it, it's like, why not you? And you telling your story helps equip and empower other people. And to some degrees, you're helping, like, people have it here, but sometimes it doesn't come out here. And that's where, because of what you said and what you wrote,
Right.
really can hit home. So continue to walk through that with us.
Yes, in the book that I wrote, it was the editor helped me came up with this title. Can you not see that, or is that too much glare?
Keep moving it over to your right. To
You're
your,
right.
your
Right.
right. To your right. It's a
Okay.
little bit better, I think, but you know what? Your light is so bright and shining. Your testimony just oozing, emanating out your pores. It's like, hey, I
Okay.
don't know if any of that lighting is going to make a difference.
Okay, I'm sorry, but yeah, does anyone hear my cry? That's the name of my book, and on the book cover is a little girl sitting on the porch, and where it's a bag of clothes that's sitting there with her, where she was abandoned, which was me. I was abandoned, and the lady that put me out set my clothes out on the porch with in a grocery bag, and so we decided to put that cover on this book. Does anyone hear my cry? And the reason why she brought that out, and I agree with it, is because a statement that I made, that how long I grew up to a grown woman, and I was sitting in the midst of crowds of people, including my church home, and I was sitting there and I was like, do anyone really hear me crying from within? They can see the smile on my face, but and just the way I am, I greet people with a smile all the time, and look good on the outside, but inside I was really just drowning, and hurting, and I was hoping that someone else could hear me. So many years I tried to find myself in other people to be healed. I tried to find myself in things and places and stuff, and thinking that I could get that healing. And it wasn't until I got really truly in the things of God, the word of God, and really discovered that, wow, how so powerful and how so big and awesome that he had made me within. And when I got that revelation, I was like, wow, yeah, really, I do need to write this book to help other people to realize how so powerful and how so awesome how so awesome they are. Some of the things little pieces that I share in this book is a real small book. Some of the things that I share in this book is about being homeless, abandoned 4 times, abuse, abusive relationships, 2 children. I had 2 children to pass, and so a lot of pieces in past. I didn't do a whole lot of, but this was the kicker. I told God, I said, okay, I don't want to put a book out there. I said, because most of the material that I pick up and read, they're in with a good story, with the white picket fence and all of the great things they have accomplished in life and stuff like that. And that would be a good ending, a good love story and stuff like that. But no, I want my book to end different. I don't want to leave people focusing on LaVonne. My story can inspire you. My story can encourage you, but I didn't want them to leave with an image of LaVonne. So the image that I wanted them to take away from this book was seeing themselves in God, in Christ.
And I tell you what, when I was listening to that, obviously stewardship is one thing that I kept hearing. Another thing, and when you think about that spiritual lens, there's many an example of someone who, quote, might have been deemed less than, but just because you're less than doesn't mean you can't be called or qualified. And I think of examples like the story of Noah, who was a known drunk. They found him naked out in the street.
Yeah.
Or other themes of redemption. But you said something that's very important, and I think there's an awakening given this now normal. But I think about the words of my grandmother. It's like, take time to see about folks, and you never know how powerful that hello, how are you doing, or how is your day, how are you feeling. For some people, they might not necessarily respond to that when they hear it from you, but if they keep hearing it from someone else, eventually they're going to open up and say, hey, this is going well, or this isn't going well. And
Mm-hmm.
the last theme that I think about, and I'm sure people have heard this, it's okay to not be okay, but you just don't want to be stuck there, because you stay stuck there too long, you already know you already know what could happen. So
Right.
I mean, walking us through those steps and that process and getting to the how and the why, those are real important things. What's one other theme or what one other takeaway that you would want readers to have when they pick up your book? And before you answer that, look, don't worry about how long or how short something is. A book is a book. And just like if we listen to a song, we might not hear the whole 4 or 5 minutes, but we hear that intro or we hear that refrain, it can resonate. So I'm just saying that to say, don't think that because your book isn't this epic encyclopedia length, it doesn't make it less important. So
Okay.
don't ever short sell your work. Don't do that.
Okay. Yeah, some of the other things that I will feel the things that I would like for them to take away is that the focus, my focus so many years was on myself and on others, on other things. And with that focus being all out of whack, it caused me to lose out on a lot of great things that I could have accomplished if I'd have got the focus right. And so, with that said, the next book that I'm writing, that I'm about to release, is focused on Christ, the new one man. And when we get our focus on who created us, that helps us to get our life on the right track. And so for so many years, I allowed my pain and the things that I had gone through to take me in a place where, in a dark, dark place, and to the point where I tried to even take my life. And so no matter what you're going through, I don't care who you are, what you've gone through, what you're going through, or what you're getting ready to go through, because we all have trials and tribulation in this life. But no matter what you're going through, there is a creator, God, Almighty God, Christ Jesus, that loves you. And what I want you to take away from this book is, which I'm explaining, is that how much he would take your mess and turn it into greatness, you know? So that's what I would like for others to take away.
Oh, LaVonne, I tell you what, we're so glad that, number one, everything worked out for you to be back here with us. But number two, that this is part of why we do this. Like, people are like, oh, someone has a book, so what? But when you really sit back and pause, and when you're able to explain the process and the evolution, and these are the things, it's a balance between part of you living your purpose, but part of you being passionate because thematically there are other people that they might not have been in the same part of the boat, but they've been in the same boat, and you're trying to get to the port. And this is just one of those ways to do so. So before we transition to our next author, of course, you need to stick around because we're going to recap this at the end. What are the best ways for people to stay connected and engaged with you?
Okay, one of the ways you can get my book, Does Anyone Hear My Cry? You can get that on Amazon, of course. And also you can connect with me on Facebook, LaVonne Yarbor, my name there, author LaVonne Yarbor. And also you can connect with me on Instagram, or you can Google. I just found that out myself. You can Google my name and just type my name in, and everything will come up what I'm doing, because there are some other little things like total life changes and stuff like that that would come up with it.
Well, I tell you what, LaVonne, just like with everybody that we've had, it's just real powerful to listen, because there's some overlapping areas and there's some areas like, wow, I'm like better you than me. So with the same spirit and energy and vibe, this next author that we're going to present is someone that I've been fortunate to know for a minute. When you talk about, passionate and purposeful with what she does professionally and beyond, that's definitely one of those things. And when she dropped information this summer that all these creative thoughts and best practices and professionalism just emanating through what she did this summer, I'm like, hey, we gotta make this happen. So I'm real excited to bring on Ms. Nsikan Ekpo to the building. How you doing this afternoon?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be in this shared space with you all. This is exciting.
Yeah, well, hey, we're excited to have you here. And before you get into your book, give our viewers just briefly a little bit of a point of reference where you're based out of and just a couple of the awesome moving parts that you're managing and really doing, a real solid job with.
Awesome. So I am based out of Atlanta, Georgia. I am an educator. I've been an educator for about 16 years and have been in the leadership realm in terms of fostering student leadership for about 15 of those years. I apologize. I'm sorry, y'all.
Oh, that's all right. Hey, that's your writing motivation. We know everyone has their something.
jumping on my lap over here, but I've been fostering student leadership for about 11 or 12 years out of Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, so here you are working with our future minds and leaders and all this type of stuff. You've got a great body of work with what you've done, we'll say, in the classroom, in the community, things along those lines. Walk through with everybody. What would you say was that moment for you where it's like, hey, I need to take what I'm doing to the next step?
Awesome. So over the years, I've managed several student leadership groups, and for about 10 of those years, I want to say I had gotten lucky. I had great students that were a part of the leadership groups, and they seemed to have an inherent idea of what leadership looked like and how it should be implemented and executed on a school campus. And so I think I had gotten lucky, but I'd also gotten comfortable in the role of student leader sponsor. Then I encountered a group that did not have those same ideas of leadership. They didn't have the foundation. And I realized that, again, for 10 years, I had gotten lucky that these students were entrusting me to give them leadership skills and develop them as leaders. And I didn't have a manual for that. I was going off of what I just knew as an adult and how I had just pretty much figured out leadership along the way, but realized I didn't have a manual for students to reference. And so I decided that it was time. It was time for me to just put my 10 years of knowledge into written form and create a manual that students could digest.
Wow. So it's neat how you said that because it's like, it's one of those, sometimes people are placed in your life for a reason. So when you talked about that first segment, you had great people who, quote, knew that they had it in them, and all you had to do was guide the ship. And now you had to do, what do I do to chip away to let people know that inside they really do have that potential and help realizing that potential. So if you can, do you have a copy of your book that people can see so they can kind of put, yes, wow, that emanates school. That looks like one of the composition books where I write some of my stuff. See, I see what you did there. So what's the title of your book?
So the title of my book is Student Leadership, the Warm and Fuzzy, and you got it. It is designed to look a bit like the composition book because I wanted students to feel as though leadership is as essential as school supplies, right? So leadership is one of those school supplies that you should definitely carry along with you. And a piece of that is that, there are students that are not tapped for leadership and don't realize that their leadership potential is still necessary. And so this book sincerely was a love letter to those students to say all students are worthy of leadership development, whether you hold this formal title or not. Every student deserves student leadership opportunity.
And I'm glad you said that because, and I'm sure we've heard this, don't judge a book by its cover. Like, you got to read the book to know what's going on. And like you said, some people do get overlooked because they might not be as fluid, or they might have does this sound familiar, Yvonne? What you used to do and what you used to be.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
Kind of sort of sound familiar. So you never, like you said, you never know. Like, you've got to give people an opportunity and give them an opportunity to see where they are, see what they can do, and just kind of help direct and guide them as best as you can. Or you might be the seed planter. Someone else has to come and till the soil.
That's right.
So it's kind of figuring out where you are in that process. Walk through with this, Nsikan, because like you said, student leadership. Can you touch base on one or two specific themes that you touch base on in your book?
Well, definitely, I'll just reiterate that leadership is for everyone. I mentioned that I'm an educator, more specifically, I'm a counselor. And oftentimes students would come in bummed about their not being able to have the opportunity because they weren't tapped as student council president, or they weren't assigned, a student leader title. And so a lot of were always just about how you show up and shine wherever you are. And so that is a thread that's throughout this book, is about students having the opportunity to just lead wherever they are, again, with or without a title. And again, it's also just about every student deserving the opportunity to lead. I say also the students that would wander off campus and they would AWOL, right? And most educators would look at that student and say, that student has no leadership and no leadership potential. But then when you pull that student in as a counselor, the student is telling you, I really didn't want to go. I really would have rather been on campus. Didn't really know how to say that. Didn't really know how to influence my peers in a different direction. So that's a student that needed leadership skills, right? So leadership is for everyone. It doesn't matter what anybody has said about what you deserve in terms of leadership. It sincerely is for everyone. And it moves outside of the true leadership status and role that oftentimes educators assign to students.
And I love what you said, that quote, show up and shine wherever you are. And when you just pause and think about that, it's where just show up and be there and bring what you can to the table. And it's so important because, like you said before, and we see it in adults too. Yeah, I'm calling some adults out, real talk. Some people think because they have a title or don't, that's what drives or doesn't drive them to do something. And just like you said, Nsikan, you're qualified as is. It's a matter of what can we do to bring more of this out. That's not just a young adults lesson. Some grown folks up here, folks that got more salt and pepper than me, some of y'all ain't got your minds right. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. What you gonna do? I'm on the board of school divinity. This is divine intervention. I am. Check it out. You can Google that too. But real talk, I'm glad you said that. Show up and shine, where you are, because it to me, it screams you have a purpose and you're important and you matter and you have skills and you have it in you. Now it's like we've got to do what we can to give people opportunities to bring more of that out. And like you were also saying, Nsikan, don't get, the titles are cool, but you can still be a presence without a title. I think that's huge. And that, when I think on the education realm, we talk about how do we invest, how do we engage in those types of things. That's real huge. Gosh, this is powerful right here. We get an overlap from a little bit of faith to a little bit of best practices to philosophy to everything. See, when you got Black women on with you, look at here, look at here, look at here. I'm just saying. About to have a Black female vice president too. Yep, putting that in existence too. Nsikan, let me ask you this before we kind of bring everything back together. What would you say, other than completing, because we know how it feels to complete a book, for those authors out there, for people who are thinking about it, yes, it's a major accomplishment to complete, but what would you say outside of completing this gave you a sense of fulfillment, like, yeah, it's really hitting home?
I would say starting it. I think it took a while for me to decide I was worthy of the title author, to be honest with you. It took a while for me to decide that everything I knew about leadership was enough to put on paper and to have people purchase it in terms of my knowledge and skill, have somebody purchase my knowledge and skill. It took a while for me to become comfortable in that. So literally, when I sat down and decided to write it, that's when I knew, one, I'm a completer. So completing was going to be inevitable, right? So once I sat down and said, I'm doing this, this is happening, I am sincere about it, my focus is here, that's when I felt accomplished, sincerely, in just sitting behind the computer and getting started.
I tell you what, that is some very timely insight. I'll say, timely testimony. and things along those lines. So before we bring LaVonne back in to kind of touch base on a couple things, Nsikan, what are the best ways that people can stay connected with you and engage and support what you're doing?
Awesome. So the book is on Amazon, and you can reach me through Instagram on at Love Sikan. So it's LUV Sikan, Sikan, Love Sikan on Instagram.
Tell you what, that's awesome. That's awesome. So as we bring everybody back in, and like I said, y'all, this is part of what we make sure to do pretty much, I guess since May, we've done this every second and fourth Sunday. We've had like 1 or 2 days where we've had a break and whatnot, but we generally try to do this every second and fourth Sunday. LaVonne, one of the things you touched base on was your next book. And I want to ask, and this is probably a universal question, but now that you know you're familiar with the process and you know that you're capable and you know that you can and you know that what you're putting on paper or ebook or whatever can speak with people, what are some things, and I know it might be hard because part of it sounds like it's quote, part of it is you being led in that direction versus deciding, but regardless if you're led or decided, what would you say would be additional takeaways that you would want readers to have from your future work?
The future work is again is to what I find is with myself, because it always says self first. And what I found with myself was that the focus in the other book that I talk about in the ending, my focus was so off until the point where my focus was in a man, you know, meaning that in a pastor, in churches, and all of the things that it's nothing wrong with, you know, going to church. I will continue forever to go to church as long as I'm breathing. But my focus was on that. I was hoping that these people could bring me that fulfillment that I was longing for. And so this book is more geared towards getting people to understand truly who they are in their identity in Christ, to really to see themselves good enough, you know, to see themselves where that it doesn't matter, like she was just saying, the other author was saying, it doesn't matter if no one ever gives me a title, no one gives me a platform or whatever. It doesn't matter who you are, where you've gone, where you come from, you know, where you're coming from. It just, all that matters is that the focus on Christ is the key to getting life in order. Because what you find is if you're a Bible reader, if you're a person that reads the Bible, you find that everything is in him, you know? And so with my understanding and my revelation is that the Christ that housed everything, including me, why not go back to the one that created me and get my focus on him? And when you get your focus on him, it helps line your life up and put your life in perspective, in order, and helps you to aim at this life in a better way, with a better view. So that's pretty much what I perceive that they would take from it.
I tell you what, that's very, very timely. Nsikan, I've got a question for you, and you might have answered it as part of the individual talk. It's great that you have the handbook. It really is, because it's important to have something concrete, tangible, etc. Do you see yourself doing some type of, I'll say, extension or follow-up to where those of us, whether we're in school or nonprofit or other related groups, have something similar? Because like you said, one of the things you pointed out is that we do overlook people and we overlook talent. And I'll take this a step further when I think about my time in the classroom, where some educators, and I'm speaking to it, you can say what you want, some educators, because students don't learn the way they did, come up with decisions that aren't entirely accurate. And in that particular lens or realm or principle, do you see yourself somewhere down the line, whether you're led that way or you choose that way, having a resource for those who are advisors, like something more advisor specific, to where, hey, just because this person, looks like, think about the hole in the wall restaurant that we all know. We all know that hole in the wall. It looks like trash on the outside,
That's
but you
right.
darn sure going to go ahead and sit on in there, and it's going to be hitting home. So do you ever think about, or do you see yourself going in a direction as a follow-up, as a companion, to where you've got something that helps those who are advising and working with these young people?
Absolutely. I have given that thought because I think that oftentimes students abide by the roles that adults assign them, right? So it would definitely be valuable for adults to start seeing students differently so that they can help foster leadership students that they would not have traditionally assigned that leadership title to. So for instance, I talk about in the book the student that asks a lot of questions, right? The student always feels as though they are not as knowledgeable as anyone else, but I would say that that student asking a lot of questions is the knowledge maker, right? It's the person that gives the teacher the opportunity to expand on a topic, bringing knowledge to the entire classroom. That's the knowledge maker. It's the person that's asking all of the questions, and that person should be thanked for the opportunity, not asked to keep quiet, right? So it's definitely about helping advisors redefine the role of leaders and to look for it differently and look for it in places that we haven't traditionally fostered as appropriate places to seek them out.
And that's great. And that's important, because that's one of the things, during this time I was thinking about, and making sure that, like you said, those types of thoughts or processes are as minimized as possible, because you never know who you might discover, who you might empower, and how, in a constructive manner, now they're in a position to better advocate. You think about that halo effect and how things can just kind of positively, we've seen negative halo effects. Let's try to do some positive halo effects. Um, Gosh, I would say, and I love asking this question because it's something I get asked, and sometimes it's similar, sometimes it's different. What would you say, starting with Nsikan, what would you say to anyone who's out there who has thought about writing, or even if they haven't thought about writing a book, if they've thought about writing a song or writing a script or something along those lines, based on your journey in wearing the author hat, what's one insight or words of wisdom that you'd want to impart to somebody?
I would say that someone is waiting on you, right? Somebody is waiting on your talent and your skill. They are waiting for you to plant the seed that they need to then grow and be everything God has called them to be. Somebody's waiting on you. So I think if you recognize that you have a purpose, and that purpose goes beyond yourself and even beyond the people you know, I think oftentimes that is enough to empower you to do something different. So somebody's waiting on you.
Okay. LaVonne, same question. Knowing this process and what have you, and where it has taken you to this point, and knowing there's still further for all of us really to go, what would be one piece of advice, wisdom, encouragement, whatever you want to call it, to somebody out there who's thinking, should I write, or should I record, or should I, like I said, come up with this script? Or it can be something beyond writing. What's one piece of advice you'd want to give somebody out there?
Yeah, so I would piggyback on what the young lady just said. Yeah, please just know that someone is waiting on your information, because you might be the only one that can deliver that information because it comes through you. And when it comes to you, please share it in any form or any way that you can. Also, a key, what I found for myself is, and I also just heard another author say, get yourself out the way. Get your head out of it. Get your intellect thinking out of it, and allow your heart to follow your heart, to write the things or whatever it may be that you're desiring to do. Because if it keep coming back to you, and it keep coming back to you every other day or every week or whatever, that means that you are the one that needs to do it. And because I used to find myself saying, someone needs to write a book on that. Someone needs to do this song. But it's you. You are the someone. So please just follow your heart and release it.
I'll tell you what, LaVonne, so before we close out, LaVonne, could you again show us your book, remind people where it's available, and remind people the best ways that they can stay connected with you?
Can I get some of this light off of it? Okay, this is Does Anyone Hear My Cry? And once again, you can get this book on Amazon, or you can also go onto my Facebook page or my Instagram page, and I got a link that will lead you to also to be able to access the book.
Okay, awesome. Nsikan, same thing. Remind people of the title of your book and where people can not only make purchases, but the best ways for people to stay engaged and connected with you.
Awesome. So the book is Student Leadership, The Warm and Fuzzy. It is on Amazon right now, and you can reach me by Instagram at LoveSikan, LUVSIKAN.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Well, I guess it'll be my turn to close out and everything. But first off, definite major thank yous to both authors, especially LaVonne, because last time, like we were talking before we went live, as you're getting closer to goals, there's going to be some type of pushback. So after having that technological pushback, it's like, all right, we got something for you in a couple of weeks. So we had something for you. So LaVonne, I thank you for being able to rework your schedule, and shouts to Michael Woodward Jr., who is supposed to be part of our last segment. We're going to get him rescheduled, but shouts to him. He was going to be part of that, I'll say, TechGate issue. But real quickly with me, my 3 books for the poetry lovers out there: Deeper Than Your Deepest Sleep, Thoughts on Love with Joseph Snorton. It is looking at love through broader lenses, from family, community, people in your life, people no longer in your life. And for people who are fans of poetry, as well as looking at themes of love through broader lenses, that is definitely the book for you or someone you know. 9 Stories of Faith. We talked a little bit about faith today.
Yeah.
9 Stories of Faith, Volume 1. That is for you or readers that can identify with. All of us are living with something, but some people live with something each and every day. So whether some of the topics and interviews we did through the lens of physical health, mental health, life after incarceration, life after a family member dies, not only how people use the lens of their faith, and we had a cross-faith talk, so it's not only through the lens of Christianity, but also Hinduism and Islam. So that's interesting, but seeing where there are some common threads. So before people start making foolish and paranoid statements, maybe you ought to sit down and talk and pause and say, look, when people greet you in the Islamic greeting, wassalamu alaikum, alaikum assalam, that means peace unto you and peace back. They're acknowledging your existence. Just like in church, pass the peace, extensions of friendship, y'all doing the same things. So you might not believe the exact same things, but there's some universality. So that's part of the reason for doing that. And you never know, your advocacy base can be a little bit bigger. Just, I'm just saying, some seed planting. But it's also talking about how people incorporate best practices with health and wellness, how they look at their support network. And as all of you have heard today, how people have changed their way of thinking. So just like some of us said, well, because I didn't have this or because of this, but eventually they changed their thinking and got their minds right. And now they're even being stronger advocates than what they were previously. And then the final book, Nothing Minor, which covers the coverage I did of minor league baseball in 2019. It's bigger than just the game, folks. Shouts to Emery Rose Photography for being a contributor for some of the photography. But the biggest takeaway is beyond the game, beyond interviews with a couple players who are actually on major league rosters. Actually, 4 of the people I interviewed played on big league rosters either last year or this year. But it's an insert on the Negro Southern Leagues Museum in Birmingham, Alabama. So for sports fans and historians, this marks the centennial or the 100th year of the Negro Leagues. So it's very important and timely that I had that in there for this time. That wasn't me thinking about that. That was somebody else thinking about that. And another thing is other pathways of sports, because there's actually an interview with one of the umpire supervisors talking about how through the lens of umpiring he's engaged in the game. But there's one quote that I want to pull from that I talked about offline that I think definitely helped both authors. It definitely helped me. And I'll just level with you. It's an interview I did with Travis Demerit, who at the time was with the AAA affiliate of the Atlanta Braves, the Gwinnett Stripers. He got traded last year to the Detroit Tigers. The Detroit Tigers purchased his AAA contract. So last year he closed out as a starting right fielder. And then for this year's shortened Major League Baseball season, he was back and forth between the Major League team as well as basically their extended spring training practice squad because minor leagues didn't play this year. But he said something that was real powerful. He said, filter out the noise. And when you think about what you've heard today, part of that noise wasn't always coming from other people. Part of that noise was coming from ourselves. And as both people alluded to, sometimes you got to get out your own way. So sometimes the noise you have to filter out isn't just from, I'll just be blunt, family members that think you crazy, friends that think you crazy, people that disown you. People are like, because you don't have this title, you got to filter out the noise at times and do it. And in like LaVonne said, you know, you got to get your focus, not only spiritually, but just in general. You know, different things that Nsikan said, you know, show up and shine. I know I'm paraphrasing, but show up and shine. And if I hadn't done some of those things, I wouldn't be here benefiting from the great talk that we've had today. So thank you to each and every one of you all. All three of the books that you saw are available on Amazon. The last book, Nothing Minor, is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And if you want copies, I have copies in my personal inventory. So the best way to stay connected with me, Facebook, author Andrew Snorton, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, author A. Snorton, and you can email me at authorsnorton@gmail.com. And before we close out, as a reminder for those of you on Amazon, which is like 5,100 of y'all, October 13th and 14th, Amazon Prime Days. Now, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but if you have been moved and motivated by the words you have heard here today, don't keep it to yourself. This is public. Hit share. Second thing, get your coins up, you know, go look through the seat cushions and you know, get that lint out your pocket, get your coins up. And on Tuesday and Wednesday, now you have something you can add to your library or someone else's library. And with all of us, there's something that we've done, whether through the lens of faith, through the lens of best practices, or a little bit of everything, where you can help someone get their mind right. Not trying to tell you all what to do, but I'm strongly encourage it. I'm from around here. I'll do what people from around here do. Oh, gosh. So as we get ready to close out, again, thank you to LaVonne Yarbor for being here today. Thank you to Nsikan Ekpo for being here today. Continued blessings and success with the great things you are doing and have yet to do. Again, shouts again to Michael Woodward Jr., who was, like I said, we weren't able to get him rescheduled for today, but we are going to get him rescheduled down the road. Shouts to my co-host, Tyressa Ty, with all the work she's doing in arts and entertainment. Like, y'all, I put it to you like this. Y'all think I got a lot going on. Please, you better. I got like appetizer size stuff going on compared to her. But shouts to Ty, and I know she'll be back with us for the next one. Again, ladies and gentlemen, please stay connected with all of us. And the last thing, if you are aware of other authors out there, it doesn't matter if it's their first book or if it's their 1100th book. If you're aware of different authors that are out there, have them get in contact with me. We'll get them scheduled accordingly. And again, you know, bottom line is, in our now normal, you got to think of things that are bigger than you. And really, you should be doing that anyway. But especially during the now normal, we're glad to be able to do this. We're glad that we've been blessed with great people across the board and topics and style. It's almost like Wu-Tang coming out the 36 chambers, son. So we are very, very thankful to everybody. So until next time, seriously, everybody out there, take care, be safe, be of good cheer, be encouraged by what you've heard today. And yeah, am I always this creative? Most occasions. But seriously, all of y'all, seriously, take good care until next time. Continue blessings with everything you've got going on. You just finished watching All About the Authors. Make sure to add All About the Authors 520 on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. And make sure to check us out. We'll see you.